Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. This Saturday, the Scarborough Business Association is having a conference, and I thought it would be good to check in with Shawn Allen, the president of the Scarborough Business Association, on what this conference is all about and what some of the issues are in Scarborough. My guest, Shawn Allen, as I mentioned, is the president of the association. He's been with the association both as president and as a director previously. And he also runs a mortgage broking private lending business. So he's someone who understands what's going on in the business community. Shawn, welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you, Brian. How are you?
Good. Very well. So tell me about this conference. It's happening Saturday. When and where?
Yeah, the conference is happening this Saturday, September the 7th, at the University of Toronto, Scarborough campus, UTSC. And it's from 10 to about 5 o'clock this Saturday, really touching all the aspects of business and finance and trying to get a lot of information out there.
And who's it for?
This conference is actually for all kinds of people, small business owners, entrepreneurs, people looking for upskilling opportunities, government grants. There's a wide range of speakers, AI. There's a wide range of speakers coming out to talk about different aspects of business. And we really wanted to kind of hone in on some of those key topics and really get that messaging across.
Only of interest to people in Scarborough or wider?
Oh, no. We're just hosting it in Scarborough because Scarborough really gets a bad rap when it comes to, hosting events. And we wanted to expand. This is our second year at it. Last year, we had people coming out from Hamilton, Brampton. We had someone come from Halifax, Montreal. So the reach is definitely beyond Scarborough's borders. Originally, it was intended to, be something very local, but it expanded beyond our wildest dreams, and we're very happy for that.
And do you have to sign up ahead or register or just show up?
Yeah, most definitely. It's free to attend, and we get quite a good number of people. Last year, we had over 2,200 people registered and attend. This year, with just a few days left, we're already over 2,500 people registered. So free to attend. We have some paid elements like a VIP reception on Thursday, but we want as many people to come because there's that much information out there, and we don't want to have any barriers to entry for people to attend. So register online at the bcrombie.ca, and we look forward to seeing you there. And it's, like I said, free to attend.
torontobusinesssummit.ca, even though it's in Scarborough.
Yeah, it's for everyone. Toronto, people think Scarborough is not a part of Toronto, but it is, right? So that's the narrative that we want to continue to push, that, a lot of times when people think about Toronto, Scarborough's an afterthought. We wanted to not just make it about Scarborough, but, we have people from Markham, Durham, Mississauga, like I said, all over coming in. Cobourg, even. We have former Minister David Tabucci from the Mike Harris days coming out to speak as well. He's coming in from Cobourg. So we have a lot of good people coming out, and it's going to be jam-packed with great information.
Tell me about some of your other speakers, if you could.
Yeah, we have speakers from different business sectors. Someone coming in from Google talking about AI. And, we have a speaker coming in from Lightspeed Web talking about marketing. A lot of times people overlook in their business accounting and marketing. Those are some of the key pillars to any business, and we have people talking to those pieces as well. We have representatives from the city of Toronto talking about different grants and programs that are happening. Procurement Canada, how to do business with the federal government. FedDev as well. The University of Toronto continuing studies talking about upskilling, because that's a big thing right now with the way that the economy is. A lot of people are in transition, right? So we want to provide opportunities for upskilling, getting people, ready for the new workforce that's about to transpire. So we want to provide as many opportunities for people to, kind of brush up on their skills and, get them prepared for the new workforce ahead.
Tell me a little bit about your organization, the Scarborough Business Association, if you could.
Yeah, the Scarborough Business Association started in 2016. I think I'm the 6th or 7th president. Don't kill me on that. I can't remember the number exactly. But our mandate is really to focus on, bringing to the forefront issues that happen in Scarborough pertaining to businesses. Coming out of COVID, there were a lot of programs that were available across the city, but a lot of them didn't apply to Scarborough because they didn't make up that, criteria. They didn't make the criteria for what these programs were speaking about. And with the business association, we're out there trying to fight for businesses in Scarborough to move their initiatives forward and have their voices heard. And then we work with other community organizations like the Scarborough Community Renewal Organization, who's really pushing for, things like transit, and other issues in Scarborough that are at the forefront as well. Housing is another one that we talk about. And we really work with the community leaders at all three levels of government to try and push issues for Scarborough and Scarborough businesses and Scarborough residents. So that's kind of, we have about 2,000 businesses that we're representing, and we're the voice of those businesses in Scarborough.
We're chatting tonight with Shawn Allen. He is the president of the Scarborough Business Association. They've got a Scarborough Business Conference coming up this Saturday, 10 till 5 at the Scarborough campus of the University of Toronto. And he directs you to the website, Toronto, what was it, Toronto Business Summit?
Toronto Biz, B-I-Z, TorontoBizSummit.ca.
TorontoBizSummit.ca if you want any information on this conference. We're going to take a break for some messages and come back with Shawn and maybe talk a little bit about some of the issues that are at the forefront of people, businesses, and the residents of Scarborough. Stay with us, everyone. It'll be an interesting conversation tonight. Welcome back, everyone, to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. We're chatting tonight with Shawn Allen. Shawn is the president of the Scarborough Business Association. He's hosting a big business conference this Saturday, 10 till 5 at the Scarborough campus of the University of Toronto. And it's about Scarborough business, but really business people from across the GTA and wider are more than welcome to attend. He's got over 2,500 people already registered. You go to TorontoBizSummit.ca, biz being spelled B-I-Z or Z, and you can get more information about the summit and some of the speakers. Shawn, what do you think are the big issues for business people in Scarborough today?
There's quite a few. Transit being at the forefront of that conversation. As you know, Scarborough makes up a large portion of the Toronto landscape with over almost 650,000 residents. But we only have 3 subway stops. We don't have any way for, our, businesses don't have any way for their staff to get to them efficiently. We're one of the higher users of rideshare. Because our Line 3 subway line was taken down or decommissioned last year, which has increased rideshare. So we don't have proper infrastructure to get employees to and from work. So it's a big conversation here. With that being said, we're not getting our fair share of services. And one of the things that we do at the Scarborough Business Summit is we host an annual mayor's lunch, and that mayor's lunch is to bring to the forefront some of the issues in Scarborough. We've been hosting that for the past 6 years. Transit and housing are number one for those conversations. And also the lack of employment lands with a lot of redevelopment happening in Scarborough. It's changing the very fabric of the community. Businesses, restaurants, Scarborough is a very friendly food capital of Toronto, with the diverse, range of cultures living in Scarborough that make up the very fabric of the community. A lot of these communities and areas are slated for redevelopment. As a part of the Toronto Business Summit happening this weekend, September 7th, and technically September 8th, we're hosting a bus tour, affordable housing and land development bus tour with Housing Now TO. Mark Richardson from Housing Now TO will be hosting that. And we have some content coming in from TTC Chair Jamal Myers, as well as Housing and Planning Committee Vice Chair Brad Bradford, talking about the fabric of the community being changed with the development of Scarborough, as well as other parts of the city and province. But those businesses along those corridors that are slated for redevelopment are going to change. right? Those businesses are going to get wiped out when, those plazas along, the new subway extension are coming in, and, they're going to get torn down and slated for, redevelopment for housing. And we're out here to defend those conversations because we don't want to have our employment lands taken away, especially those lands that are being used currently for businesses and retail sector that, once you take that away and gentrify that, these businesses will never come back. They're not going to be able to afford the new rents. They're not going to be able to service the community, and then the community is going to change. So these are some of the things that we're going to be talking about. And
So what do you think should happen? I've seen, and I'm not sure exactly what areas you're talking about, but redevelopment proposals for like the Golden Mile that are really quite exciting with condominium development and retail development and the like. Are you suggesting that you don't want that to happen? That you want to keep the current the current developments that are there?
No, I'm all for development. I'm all for development. I'm coming from a real estate background, like you said in the beginning. My background is mortgage and finance, and real estate as well, and I'm all for that. But what I'm not for is the gentrification of these areas that are currently in use, because these stores and businesses that are there, once you tear down those plazas, they're not going to be able to come back. So the very fabric of the community is going to change. Right. So there needs to be a fine balance of, yes, bringing those services in, but also, preserving some of that natural, character of the community. So United Way is another partner of ours that's coming in. They have their ILEO project, it's inclusive, I forget the actual L, but economic opportunity. But that's really getting the businesses that are local to the community, the people that are local to the community, involved in reshaping the community, but keeping the very essence of those businesses and community members as a part of that redevelopment, right? So that's what I'm for. I'm all about building the community and changing it, but still keeping some of those original elements there. So Golden Mile is a perfect example of that. We're working, the SBA is working with other community organizations in Scarborough to find ways to support businesses and residents in that gentrification. So yes, that's one of the areas along Kennedy Road by the Kennedy subway station. There's lazy land sitting over there where, they want to convert that into housing. I'm all for that. They want to convert it into, affordable housing there along the McCowan subway line at McCowan and Danforth, right by Scarborough General Hospital. That's another area. At our affordable housing summit that we had in May, the Thursday before, Brad Bradford announced at our summit that the city had just passed some new legislation to allow.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. I seen the screen change there. Yeah, it allowed the city changed zoning that allowed for 6-story, 60 units on main roads. I'm all for that, right? But is that going to work in every pocket of the city? No. Are some areas of the city outside of Scarborough and inside of Scarborough insecure about, a fourplex being put up beside, their property? Sure. But specifically for Scarborough, I think some of these opportunities are fabulous for the community, but we need to have the proper infrastructure to support it. That's what I'm talking about.
So, there's a website, Future Model TO by Stephen Valesco, that I like to go to because it maps out all the different developments in different areas of the GTA that are either under construction or proposed in addition to what's currently developed. And, his website shows a huge amount of development around Scarborough Town Center, 30,000 residential units, 36 different towers, but 5 are under construction, but the vast majority are proposed. And, as we talked about, a fair amount of development in Agincourt, Markham and Ellesmere, and then a massive development along, what I used to call the Golden Mile, where it's like a whole new city is being developed. Tell me what you think of these developments, if you could.
I'm all for development. Like I want to see Scarborough change. I want to see Scarborough grow, and I'm all for that. But my problem here is we don't have the transportation infrastructure. We're still waiting for the LRT to come along Eglinton, right? That's been delayed and delayed, and the residents are frustrated. The businesses are frustrated. They went through years of construction to get that up, and it's still not open, right? So how do you justify, providing all of this new development without providing the infrastructure to support the amount of people that are coming through the neighborhood? Scarborough still has three stops. The LRT got taken away where we had five stops, technically six, and they took that away for three stops with the new subway line. We're underserved when it comes to transportation, and these are some of the things that we want to put forth when we're talking about Scarborough and putting through initiatives that are key to us. The Scarborough brand is really taking a beating right now, and we really got to do something about that to preserve the infrastructure, to preserve the core essence of Scarborough, and that's what we're here for.
It's been an issue for quite a while and numerous different mayoralty campaigns that Scarborough doesn't have sort of its fair share of transit or enough transit. And I think it was, Rob Ford, the current premier's brother, when he was mayor, that talked about subways being the only solution for Scarborough. Why do you think Scarborough hasn't got its sort of the transit that you think it deserves?
Well, look at the numbers. At 600 and call it, 50,000, Scarborough would be the 10th largest city in the country. We don't even have hotels, right? Our hotels are converted into shelters. We don't have hotels. We don't have transit. And for a city of, if Scarborough was a city of this size, comparable to Calgary or, cities like that, we would have a whole lot more funding, and we'll be able to take care of our own, resources and infrastructure. But all of our stuff gets sucked into the downtown core. We have, mental health issues in Scarborough like everywhere else does, but we don't have the resources to support it. It's very challenging to try to move business ahead where you're not getting support to build out what's necessary to make the community vibrant. I was born in Scarborough. I'm raised in Scarborough. I still live in Scarborough. My company, Matrix Mortgage, and my real estate brokerage, Property Exchange, reside in Scarborough. So I'm here. I was born here, 1979. So I've seen the transformation, but more needs to be done because a lot of long-term residents in Scarborough, choose Scarborough because of the variety of people that are here. It's very multicultural. It's very friendly. But for a long time, it's been getting a bad rap. And I think, now is the time. The Scarborough brand is strong. A lot of people are uniting under the Scarborough brand and coming back from other jurisdictions where they left. And they're coming back to say, hey, I want to support Scarborough. And that's what we're here for. We're here to push the narrative to say, hey, 3 subway stops is not enough. I'm not saying that, we need to have all subways because maybe the cost to produce that, is not prohibitive at this time. However, we do have a transportation issue in Scarborough for a place that has this amount of people. It's very challenging to get around. And that's what we're here to talk about and really try to find solutions.
It sounds to me like you think amalgamation with Toronto was a bad idea, that Scarborough would have done better off if it had been a separate city in the 10th largest city in Canada, that you get more attention and more focus and not the way you described having all the services getting sucked to the downtown.
You know what? I can't really speak per se to the amalgamation and the pros and cons because that was before my time. I wasn't an adult then, I was a teenager. But I do hear those chatters in different groups that I'm in. So there must have been a reason why it happened. I know Scarborough voted against it and then they got sucked in regardless. But I do see as a grown adult living, working, breathing in Scarborough, raising my family in Scarborough, that, when you compare Scarborough to other jurisdictions of similar size, yeah, we are getting our short end of the stick. And we're getting dumped on for certain things. And like my kids work at the food bank through the summer, and they're saying that food bank usage is through the roof. Like we have Feed Scarborough, we have AXA, like there's groups out here that they're saying the food bank numbers are going through the roof. I'm like I said, I'm quite sure that that's not just a Scarborough issue, but I'm talking specifically about Scarborough and what's happening here. And that's what's happening. There's a lot of things that are going on in the city, a lot of things going on in Scarborough that are happening other places, but in Scarborough, we have the ability to fix it, but some of those resources are getting taken out to fix other places when it should be left here to resolve.
The 401 is one of the busiest highways, if not the busiest highway in North America. And it probably is, 16 lanes going through Scarborough. And you've only got the one highway, really, going through your region. While when you think about, North York or Etobicoke or Toronto, they've got numerous more. So transportation is an issue, is it not?
It's a major issue. It's a major issue. When we had there was a fire, a big fire on the highway. Was it earlier this year or last year? And there was straight gridlock. It's hard to move around Scarborough when there's traffic everywhere. It's very hard to commute when you only have bus service that's competing for the same space as cars. Right. So, yes, we do have a traffic issue. Yes, we do need transit. Yes, we have gridlock. And this is what we want to push for. The TTC chair, Jamal Myers, is from Scarborough. He represents Scarborough North, and he came actually from the SBA, the Scarborough Business Association. So he understands that too. So we're trying to push the narrative and really get that Scarborough brand out there to say, hey, look at us separate and apart from, and let's find solutions to these issues that are native to us. That's the conversation going forward.
Do you think that in the current city of Toronto, there's just too much attention to downtown Toronto? When I think about the last election, and I believe you had one or two people from Scarborough that were running one of the leading candidates potential for mayor. But most of the issues were sort of downtown Toronto issues, weren't they, in the election campaign?
And that's funny that you say that. And you know what? The seat for the mayor, the seat for the premier, and the seat for the prime minister, all three of those offices, if you look back at the stats, if you don't win Scarborough, you don't win those seats. Ford has 4 seats in Scarborough. Chow won Scarborough. She lost Scarborough Rouge Park by 39 votes, but she won the rest of Scarborough. Trudeau also won Scarborough. Scarborough's very red. But now it's time for people in Scarborough to stand up, and they have to realize that we need our issues heard. You have to pay attention to Scarborough because we put people in office. Go back and look at the stats after this call and take a look. If you don't start respecting the demands and issues of Scarborough, the facts are you're not going to get in office. Mayor Chow spent a lot of time in Scarborough. That's how she won. Yes, she won downtown, but she won Scarborough. That's what put her over the edge. So we have to make sure.
Paying attention to Scarborough issues? If
she's paying attention to Scarborough issues is another concern, right? I think more can be done. She does come to Scarborough quite a bit, but there needs to be more. There needs to be more because a lot of downtown issues are getting dumped into Scarborough. And, I've talked to the police at 43 and 42. They're complaining that some of the issues, they're just getting dumped. Like, mental health is a serious thing across the country. And they brought a lot of cases into Scarborough and just said, here, we're going to put them here without any supports to provide infrastructure around that. These are the things that we're talking about. We want to make sure that, yes, we want to do our fair share. However, we want the support of the city to do our fair share. You can't just dump services and resources on us and expect us to figure it out. Policing is another thing. Like you can't just lock people up with mental health issues. This is, you need a full infrastructure around that. Scarborough Health Network is a great, provider of services, health services, but they don't get any funding. So we have a Love Scarborough campaign that we're providing supports for the hospitals, and more needs to be done, right? So these are the type of things that Scarborough's banding together on. And yes, more does need to be done from the mayor's office and all three levels of government. But we are definitely pushing forward with that conversation.
We're chatting tonight with Shawn Allen, the president of the Scarborough Business Association. It's holding a business conference this Saturday at the University of Toronto Scarborough campus from 10 till 5 p.m. You can go to Toronto Biz summit.ca to check it out. We're going to take a break for some messages, and we're going to come back. I'm going to ask Shawn a little bit about some of the other issues. We've been talking about transit. We've been talking about housing. We've been talking about mental health. I'm going to talk about some more business issues in the next segment to see, how he's going to address some of these at this conference on Saturday. Stay with us, everyone. Back in 2 minutes. Welcome back, everyone, to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour. We are chatting tonight with Shawn Allen. He is the president of the Scarborough Business Association. He's hosting an event on Saturday, a Scarborough Business Conference. It's going to happen at the Scarborough campus of the University of Toronto. It's going to go from 10 till 5 p.m. You can get some information at torontobizsummit.ca. And he says it's not just for people from Scarborough, it's for people involved in business or wanting to be involved in business or looking for grants, FedDev grants or other information from all across the GTA or even wider. Shawn, we've talked about housing, we've talked about transit, we've actually touched on mental health. What are some of the other issues that are important to business? You think about from an economic standpoint, lots of people are questioning, interest rates, inflation, unemployment, deficits. What do you think are the other economic issues that are going to come up at the summit that business people are concerned about in Scarborough today?
Businesses are suffering. A lot of businesses in Scarborough took the CEBA grants in COVID, and a lot of them can't pay them back. There was a study for Canadian, what's the group called in Canadian business, CIBC. I think it's CNIB, Canadian. I forget the name of the group off the top of my head, but the national group for businesses, and a lot of the businesses are struggling paying back their CEBA loans. A lot of businesses are in debt. A lot of businesses are going bankrupt. Bankruptcies at an all-time high.
Bankruptcies are at an all-time high, really.
Right now, a lot of businesses. I've seen a report. A lot of businesses are going bankrupt. Canadians are struggling now more than ever, right? So, and what does that say about the economy? When we're talking about inflation, I think the last number was, that inflation's coming down, but the measurement used to determine what inflation is changing all the time. We anticipate the interest rates coming down again. Some say 25 points, some say 50 points. It'll be interesting to see what that looks like in the morning. But at the end of the day, people are struggling, right? People are calling us. We have a pre-event survey, and then we're asking people in that survey, are you having issues making ends meet? And a whopping majority of those people are saying yes. It's definitely tighter now than ever before. Because cash is tight. That's why they got to lower interest rates, and it's going to be very interesting to see once the report is complete, where people are financially, because everyone that we're talking to are really struggling right now trying to get financing. Right, they're really struggling paying their bills, and it's going to be a very interesting topic at the summit.
You talked about interest rates and the people that are hoping that interest rates are going to come down. What do you see as the impact on the real estate market? You're in mortgage broking business as well, private lending business as well. How's that impacted condominium development, apartment development, housing development in Scarborough?
Well, nobody's building anything. We're talking about building affordable housing, but a lot of the money that's being set aside for housing, works out to about $40,000 per door. What can you build with that? Right now, we have an issue with land development costs. 30% of all construction costs is land development costs. We're actually working on putting together a city hall as well as a Queen's Park roundtable discussion to really talk about these issues. Matt Young at Republic Development got several builders from all across the city to sign a petition to say that if you reduce the development charges, they'll reduce the cost of construction dollar for dollar. I don't know what traction that's going to get, and I don't even think that that's going to get anywhere, because where's the city going to get the money from to build up the infrastructure and all the supports that they need to support these communities once these developments are done? So there has to be a new conversation and a new strategy in the housing conversation. I know that the prime minister came out a few weeks ago and said he's going to open up federal lands for lease to builders that will, eliminate some of the land costs. But I don't think that that's enough. House prices are down considerably. They're up a bit from COVID, mind you, but nobody's refinancing. They lowered rates twice. And that hasn't even cracked a dent into the housing market. The supply of housing is still, up, and there's a lot of condo projects that are there, or condo units that are vacant right now. And we're seeing it a lot through our mortgage business, where people are just at their neck in debt. They can't even refinance because the values have come down and their loan to values are sky high. Right. And they cannot get out, and their people are really struggling right now. That's what we're noticing. People are really struggling with their finances. And that translates into what I said earlier, with food bank usage on the rise. So there's a lot of things that are happening that are not really getting talked about, that's affecting people. And development is one of them. Developers are not going to build any projects because the numbers don't make sense. We could talk about affordable housing all we want, but the numbers don't add up. And I was talking to somebody recently, and I got a fact checked the amount of numbers they were talking about, but just in relation to the amount of people waiting on housing lists, I think there's about 150 or 190. Don't quote me on the exact number of people waiting for housing, but the amount of housing that got built was maybe 500 units, 1,000 units. It's just not enough, and something's got to give.
I interviewed the gentleman that you mentioned from Republic about his pledge, which, numerous different developers signed on to, saying that they would pass on any reduction in development fees as reductions in their condo prices. And their point was that the average condo right now in the Greater Toronto area is somewhere around 30% tax. And the development fees and all the other fees amount to about $130,000, $140,000. And with that jack up in development fees and the lack of condos being built, even with really high development fees, cities aren't going to make much, because there's not going to be a lot of houses and condos sold. And so you're not going to get a lot, even with high percentages, when you're multiplying it by a very small number. So it was an interesting development. Let me ask you another question, though, because, some people are saying that our productivity in Canada generally is down to 40% of what American productivity is. And it was about equal about a decade or 15 years ago. And that our real disposable income hasn't grown in 10 or more years, such that we have a real sort of prosperity productivity challenge in Canada today. Is that an issue for business people in Scarborough?
I think so. But then that, productivity issue, does that tie into an immigration issue as well? Is that a conversation that we want to open up as well? Because, yes, we have an issue with productivity, and maybe there's some underlying, reasons for that. It's very difficult to say. And I just came back from the US, and I find that the mentality of Canadians is more wait and see, as opposed to the Americans, which is go, go, go. And I think the mind state of Canadians needs to be a little more aggressive around productivity. How does that look? I think it starts with education. We really need to make our students and our population have that hunger to learn more and to, innovate. And that's what we want to talk about at the summit as well, as innovation. And, we're working with the university and the school, the hub, which is now the name transferred over to Cecile, which is really pushing for young people to get into, innovative ways of doing business and creating startups. And, there's a lot of groups that are coming there talking about startups and providing opportunities that didn't exist in the past, right? And that's where we have to move the needle. We have to start innovating more, creating more opportunities in spaces that didn't exist. The University of Toronto has an initiative that they're putting together, which is called the Earth District, which is the Environmental Related Technologies Hub. That's what Earth is the acronym for. And the premise behind that is to create a sustainable infrastructure for education and employment of the future. And this corridor runs from Ottawa to Waterloo. And the whole premise behind this is to provide education, sustainable education for jobs that are sustained through this corridor of companies that are working towards a sustainable future, whether it's in housing, whether it's in AI, whether it's in robotics, and the list goes on. But we want to make sure that we're educating our people for those future opportunities. And I think that's where we're missing the mark right now. So yes, productivity may be low, but it might be time to have a paradigm shift as to who we are as Canadians and what we stand for when it comes to those jobs of the future and how we're preparing our society for those jobs.
Taxes in Canada are higher than in the United States, and it's a sort of an issue all the time. Property taxes in Toronto are actually lower than they are in the 905, at least on residential, not on commercial. What do you think of our tax debt and deficit situation? Is that an issue for Scarborough businesses?
I'll tell you something. I love Canada, and I wouldn't trade Canada for any other place in the world. A lot of people want to leave Canada because of the taxation. And you asked me earlier about my party affiliation, and I said I don't have a party affiliation, but the tax and, spend, philosophy around, the Canadian mindset, I think needs a change. I'm all for supporting the next person and helping the community. And that's what, I've stood by. That's how I was raised. But you're crushing the small business and the entrepreneur who are responsible for employing, a large portion of society. Small business is the backbone of Scarborough. There's many small businesses. I think there's the last count 14,000 businesses in Scarborough. I think that was the last report I seen. And these are the people that are employing. We have a few large employers like TELUS and Toyota that are in Scarborough. The post office, Canada Post is here. Amazon has a distribution center here. But outside of those large institutions, small business is driving the economy. And when you start taxing those small businesses, they're not going to be too enthusiastic to hire people. They're not going to be too enthusiastic to stay. So we do, as a country, want to support one another, but there has to be some give and take with regards to the taxation of people, because you're strangling the very fabric of the community with that. And then another thing about taxation that I'm still trying to really get a grip on is the thought of taxing people's homes, primary residence. I'm not for that. People in Canada, the culture here in Canada is all about, paying off your property and, leveraging your equity, whether to pass down to your family or, you share your estate when you pass or whatever it is. But a lot of people right now, seniors, they're living with their adult children longer.
To make ends meet, no question.
Ends meet, right? And now you're going to tax them on their property. The reverse mortgage product, a lot of seniors, retired people are pulling equity out of their home to support their children, right? So what does that say about the system that's in place? there's a problem. Like, far gone are the days of, and I grew up, both my parents worked. My mother was a civil servant. My father worked for OPG. And, I wouldn't say we had a low upbringing. We had a very good upbringing. But it was still challenging. But now I couldn't see, a single income household
Affording a
making,
home.
you can't, right?
No chance. Shawn, we got to take a break. A final break, and we're going to come back with some concluding comments with Shawn Allen in just 2 minutes. Stay with us, everybody. Back in 2. Welcome back, everyone, to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour. We've been chatting with Shawn Allen. He is the president of the Scarborough Business Association. He's got a big business conference on Saturday, 10 till 5 at the Scarborough campus of the University of Toronto. You can go to torontobizsummit.ca to check out the details, register, and see who the speakers are. Shawn, this has been a really interesting conversation. You've addressed a bunch of issues and challenges that Scarborough has. And, for people in Mississauga and Brampton and Peel and Etobicoke and the rest of Toronto, a lot of those things will resonate. You've talked about transit as being a big issue. You've talked about how long the Eglinton Crosstown has taken to come to fruition and be open. You've talked about the affordability crisis in housing. You've talked about mental health. You've talked about productivity. You've talked about inflation and interest rates, and you've talked about taxation. And so it's been a good, wide-ranging conversation. So I got to ask you, you're obviously a very deep thinker and a well-connected individual in Scarborough. If you were the mayor of Scarborough, assume for a second that Scarborough was a separate city, and you were the mayor of Scarborough, what would be the top 2 or 3 things you'd want to do right away?
Well, one thing I would do, which is, it may be unpopular, but I think it's necessary, which is, I think there should be a tax or a fee for people that choose not to vote. I think everyone has the right to vote. I think everyone, and this is something that I just recently learned, that in Australia they do this. If you don't vote, you pay a tax. And I think, I think that should happen in Scarborough, and I think that should happen across the country, because we really need everyone to have a voice. And it doesn't make sense that only a small percentage of people elect people that are making decisions for everyone. So that's the first thing.
Compulsory voting, number one. Okay.
Think, right. And people might not like me for that, but I think that's important. And number 2, taxes in, Toronto are low, lower than the GTA or other 905 regions. I'm, not for raising taxes, but I am for providing solutions around, some of the issues like those land development costs. And we have to look for alternative ways to finance that. Does that mean we raise taxes? I don't know. I don't know what that looks like. I don't know fully what the books of the city of Toronto are, right? I don't know. But, I think there's opportunity to eliminate waste. And I think we have to always find ways to eliminate waste. I do it with my household. I'm thinking, hey, the city must have opportunities there. We can't keep taxing people to death. We can't keep putting people in a situation where they have to make a decision. Are they going to have a meal, or are they going to pay their debt, right? We need to find ways to make it more appealing to people to live in this great city that we call Toronto, in this great country that we call Canada, and make it more affordable. And those are probably the 2 most important issues. Set aside that, we have to make the environment better for businesses to compete. Right now, we're moving into a global economy, right? We have to compete globally, whether it's through the education and our training, whether it's through our products and services. We have to compete on a global level.
Shawn Allen, yeah. I agree. That great list of things. I apologize, but we're out of time. You've got a conference coming up on Saturday. I think it's going to be an excellent affair. Go to torontobizsummit.ca to check it out. Steve Allen, thank you.